I love Commodore 64. I adore it. So many games released for this system. Even today there's still amazing games coming out. But unlike consoles back in the day, there was no main company like Nintendo or Sega breathing down developers' necks to release quality games. This fell solely on the developers and publishers. If you wanted big sales, you'd need either a fantastic game that spread by word of mouth or magazine reviews, or you'd need a game that already had name recognition, like ports of popular arcade games. And there were a lot of those. But arcades were really designed to take your quarters and get you out of there, so the next guy could come over and empty his pockets. Commodore 64 games were hard. There's no denying it. They were purposely designed this way as gaming hadn't really gotten to the point of being a widespread storytelling experience like it was in later years. It featured a lot of fast action and quick deaths. This was sometimes to mimic their arcade counterparts, and a lot of the time it was to hide just how short some of these games really were. While some people might have used the difficult experience to train themselves to get better at it, a lot of people just said screw this and either used or made trainers for games. A trainer is a little program that boots before you start your game. This little program modifies the game you're about to play to do things like give you infinite lives or time. Stuff to make the game easier. The point being that these were software-based cheats that were usually bundled with pirated games, and not hardware-based devices like we know in the console world. This was until around the mid-80s when at least a few different cheat cartridges like the Action Replay or Final Cartridge 3 showed up on the market. These cartridges usually weren't designed to do one thing. They usually had a few different functions, and cheating in games were just one of them. All of these cartridges are about as equally rare these days, but a few years ago I stumbled upon one that I'd never heard of before. This one is called Game Killer by RobTek. RobTek, formerly known as RobCom, was mainly known for the Game Killer, but they did release at least a couple of other cartridges under the RobCom name. Stuff like fast loaders, a machine code monitor, and a printer interface. These were part of a Turbo series, as they called it, which was a range of 5 utility cartridges for the Commodore 64. Game Killer. I love that name. I don't think this cartridge ever saw an actual release in the US, as RobTek was a company based in London, and all of the Commodore magazines I checked out never mentioned this cartridge being available over here in the US. So it was probably either mail ordered, or whoever originally bought it brought it back here. It seems every few years or so, I'm lucky enough to swallow up someone's retro game or computer collection and buy everything that they have. This is exactly how I acquired this cartridge, so I don't really know much about how this one got to Nowheresville, Minnesota, where I bought it. So what did this cartridge do? Not a lot. Its only function is to disable sprite collisions, so you can walk through bad guys and their bullets. That's it. Unfortunately, it's not nearly as cool as, say, the Action Replay, which came out the same year in 1986. But the Action Replay allows you to freeze a game and enter pokes while the game is running to change the value of an address in memory. For example, an address that contains the information about how many lives you have left. That's way beyond what the Game Killer does. To put this simply, the Commodore 64 has built-in sprite collision routines. The first is to be able to detect sprite-to-sprite collisions, like when you get shot by a bad guy's bullet. And the other is to detect sprite-to-background collisions, like if you're flying a plane and crash into a mountain. What the Game Killer does is disable these so that they can't be used to detect collisions. This will let you run through bullets or fly through mountains. And when you find a game where it works well. I guess the point of it is that you're supposed to turn it on to skip through levels that give you trouble, and then turn it off so you can play the game normally once you're past a tough part. Great idea, but the reality of it is that the majority of games that you'd probably want to play don't use the built-in collision detection. Unfortunately, this means that it doesn't work most of the time. I spent hours trying game after game to find some examples for this video, and was only able to find less than 10 games out of around 100 that I tried. The conclusion that I found is that it's mostly either really early games that work, or simple ones like those that come on disc mags. I had the most luck using it on the games in my Uptime disc collection. More notably, I found that it does work on games like Pac-Man, Montezuma's Revenge. Jumpman. Bruce Lee. And later I found this list from RobTek with these additional games it works for, very few of which I am familiar with. I tried it on some newer games and nope. I guess people just have better methods of doing collision detection, so they don't bother using the built-in ones. Like I said, it probably won't work with many games that you'd actually want to play. So to use this cartridge, it's actually really simple. All you have to do is make sure the cart is plugged in securely, turn on the computer, and you'll be greeted with an excellent song written by the legendary computer music guy, Rob Hubbard. Listening to the song is part of the experience, so don't skip it. After you've had enough, hit the spacebar and load the game like normal. When you're ready for some cheating, hit the button on the side of the cartridge. The screen will go blank for a moment, and with any luck, you're a-cheatin'. There's actually a few different combinations to disable different kinds of collisions. If you press the button by itself, it'll attempt to disable all sprite collisions, like the sprite-to-sprite as well as the sprite-to-background collisions. If you hold the joystick in the up position and hit the button, it'll just disable the sprite-to-sprite collisions. And if you press the joystick down and hit the button, it'll just disable the sprite-to-background collisions. Hit the button again to turn it off. So why would anyone buy this cartridge if it didn't work very well? Well, it was pretty cheap at only around 15 pounds. Well, I guess that's not that cheap for 1986 money, but it was still less than an Action Replay, which was going for around 35 pounds. There was also a lot of marketing behind this cartridge. If you look at any of the more popular C64 magazines from 1986, you'll usually see a full-page ad for the game killer. I can't say I agree all that much with the advertising. It's a bit misleading. Game killer. Infinite lives? Nope. Or check out this one. It works on all those thousands of games with sprite collision. Maybe. Not many that are worth playing. Ooh, and check out this one. Warning. It is possible that some of the games that you own will not have all the levels and screens promised by the software houses. This could mean that you could send them back due to false information under the Trade Descriptions Act. Oh crap, RobTek! You better hope they don't send the game killer back after they find out that it only works with about 12 games. Apparently, RobTek was fairly successful after this cartridge, releasing and distributing software for many more years after. But they weren't always very honest with what they had to offer. Here they claimed the database software was a relational database software, but it wasn't. Oh, and here they got caught and called out for selling pirated software. Oh. So is this something that I would recommend or think that you should try and hunt down if you have your own Commodore collection? No. It's just a curiosity, something that I thought was neat. It was pretty much obsolete when it was released, so I wouldn't imagine there's a ton of these things out there, especially here in the US. Personally, I would try to hunt down an original Action Replay, which can disable sprite collisions and do so much more. If I'm ever able to find one, you bet I'll make a video about that. There's also a more modern solution to game cheating called the Ultimate 2 Plus cartridge, which emulates a bunch of other interesting cartridges, among a ton of other features. I'd go for that if you're looking to cheat on real hardware. So yeah, this thing doesn't work great, and that's okay. I still like it. Probably not something that a lot of people would look this far into, but I find it interesting, and I hope you did too. Hey, thanks for watching. I do a lot of other videos about weird and obscure gaming topics. So if you enjoyed this video, you should definitely think about subscribing and leave a like on this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.